So, hello and welcome to the initial concept for this game. So, one of the first areas I already built up was this, and I had some ideas of making the stream going up into here, giving you some viewpoints of where you might end up going, and having this area be the pass into the sewer levels, which you'd climb up into the capital up here. This is one of the earliest areas. So the way the game's kind of carried out from here is that if you remember, in the final version, over here is the high capital, and then the start point has been changed over here. So always kind of having opposite of viewpoints here. But the way the game's developed, it's just been, instead of this being the final point, this is now the beginning, and then sending over here. And I had quite an ascent in my first levels, and all of this was way higher than this area. And also when I also debated the boat coming in from over here, and this is also still quite an ascent here. So I think having downtime in the level and viewpoints, so from here being the start point down in here, and climbing out in viewpoint, I think this is just more valuable to the player, and it makes these points more relevant to climb to because the player actually has time to get to them. And if the player is just starting from down here, like things like this are it's kind of just a waste of time. There's not really too many ways to reward this unless I tell the player that they need to use a lever or something to bring this bridge down, and if they can't do that, it's going to be hard for the player to understand to keep just following around without really getting the best viewpoints of this. So yeah, the idea was just changed, that I think coming from here, and it makes more sense to come from a church, from a tomb, as a revived thing than on the boats. And the boats can still relatively mean that, but as the player being in there, it's kind of just makes more sense than coming off a boat, I think, to players who don't know the story already. A few changes were made. This was initially touching this, and instead I have a little path leading to this now, and this was supposed to be progression, and now it's this kind of a separate route for the player to end up over here and to bypass this area. Still having access into it over a little bridge. But yeah, kind of just trying to bring the player away from this area, because there's not that much going on. We have a little zombie enemy here later on, but I'm just trying to draw the player over to here, the bulk of the game, and build line of sight with the end goal, and just showing them high points of where their path will be, just to give them some understanding of where they'll be going. Okay, I will go back and carry on from the other one. Hello, and welcome to the version which has been developed on. Sorry, just taking a drink there. So, suspenseful lighting was supposed to be a very key theme of mine and Enrique's level, and we wanted the idea of decay and ruin kind of consistently being taught to the player, and I personally wanted a European medieval aesthetic, so I have a lot of inspiration taken from my trip to France, which is first-hand research, and also partly inspired by the city of Barcelona, as well as a few Italian cities I went to last year. And I'll just quickly go through the lighting and how I intentionally draw player attention first. So, through this ribcage here, the biomagic is glowing out, and it's blue off the top of this coffin here, kind of showing to the player that the energy that the some organisms, when they die, leave their stain of magic, and that's why people here are being enslaved and killed to be used for fuel for the Queen's malicious magic acts. So this is kind of just building up that theme. An interesting lighting thing here, and it's revealing a key into the light. This one's just been highlighted, just as I think the items and stuff in my game will have this glow. More intentional use of lighting here, showing off the sword over here and the statue, which is a prominent character within the game. Lighting of this bad guy, teaching the player about how stealth works, and they're fine to go get this here. If they step on these bones here, the enemy will aggro and they'll run over and hear the noise, which is not working in the final product, but that's irrelevant. They'll get the sword, and if they avoid it, they can go up and sneak past and get them. Here, they'll be fine in the darkness, but they're supposed to see this enemy type here and be drawn away from this chest. So if a player does remember that this chest is here, they'll have to kind of go a little bit extra of a distance to get this. And if a player does that, I think that they'll probably think that they're a little bit, more resilient and smart and resourceful for actually getting this. Swing up, still prominent use of light, and a lot of parallaxing in viewports, just to kind of build attention to the features. So like this is a thing leading to a chest up here. The bell is of relevance to the story. Lighting here, showing off the energies just emanating out of these statues again, and building up a narrative of that these guys are trying to break these statues for some reason. So you're kind of just building up the world's narrative as you go. And here, I think this is a lot stronger of a viewpoint as opposed to starting in a lower part of the town. So they'll see on the horizon the big, overwhelming, monolithic, gothic kingdom, and it's literally enshrouding most of the land in darkness, with only some light being able to peer through, and these trees barely hanging on here. And this light is still bathing the church, so I think it's a nice coming out, and it's not too overwhelming for the player, which I think the other starts in the game felt a little bit too bleak. And this, I quickly introduced the player that it will be bleak, but then still giving them more light on the way out here. So just a very intentional use of lighting here, and keeping these moments in darkness, and letting the player get up into the light every now and then, and just drawing their eye to their goal. Lots of static shots, just of giving the player shadows and stuff to see as they go around corners. So yeah, lots of intentional viewpoints made here, just to build up environmental storytelling. This here with the cannon being used to shoot this, to open up the door. Just building up on the themes that you're finally getting revenge through the gameplay, as they're destroying the monuments here, and just really building up on that theme that this is happening. And this here, to represent that they still have the magic imbued into them, so there's still hope in the lands if you're hopeful and pray, and then you can still kind of harness your magic. And this is supposed to be why these lamps are lit up, because the people here still practice that. But these areas that have been now under control and raided are now just really struggling. It's kind of supposed to be the idea here. But then this is happening to this area right now anyway, and they're taking the bodies and loading them up onto the boats is the idea. But then you do this counter action, and they open up this gate, you fight through waves of enemies up here, and then you have your opportunity to get up. And viewpointing of things of relevance. This literally built into the stairs here. And yeah, just the idea of the ascent. That undestroyed statue here that you could destroy if you like. One final act. Big boss fight, and then more developing on the theme of the golems and how they're being maltreated and used. Alright, thank you very much. That's my concept and ideation. I hope you enjoyed.